All right, Game Design 2, Lecture 2, MDA, Segment 5, where we're going to talk about the verbs. Up to this point, we've talked a lot about the MDA, Mechanics, Dynamics, Aesthetics model. That's a very popular way to describe what a game is like, to look at the mechanics that we choose and how we choose to implement them, and follow that all the way through the player behaviors to the player aesthetic to the user experience. Very popular way, but it's not the only way. There are other ways, and here I wanted to give you at least one other look at another option for describing an experience, what a game is like, which has been used for a long time. It's known as the verbs. And yes, you might have guessed, it's where we describe what the player actually does, and from that, you can actually glean a lot about what the player experience will be. So here are a few lists of verbs. Let's take a look at that first column right there. If I were to say, I'm going to make a game where the player can walk, run, hide, crawl, shoot lights, knock out, and hack. You probably know a lot about that game already. It's a stealth game. It's a kind of a covert game. You might be able to tell me the actual game. What do you think? What game do you think it is? Could be Deus Ex, could be Batman, could be Watch Dogs. But remember, I'm old, so my examples are old. This happens to be Splinter Cell. All of those games, where they're different games, the experience is very much the same. The middle column here, walk, run, jump, stomp, break blocks, shoot fire. What do you think that one is? Yeah, that one's a little more obvious. That's Super Mario Brothers. That's right. And then finally, Super Mario. Roll, rotate, absorb, and dash. Super Monkey Ball? Nope. Could be. I also get Sonic and Kirby. But in this case, it's actually, yes, very good, Katamari. And I like picking this one because whereas the first two columns, those are not exhaustive lists. Those are some of the verbs, but not all of the verbs. However, in the case of Katamari, that's pretty much all the verbs. That's all the player can do in that game. So kind of interesting. Just a few things the player can do, but still a very interesting, challenging, and meaningful game. Yeah, Dash was more of a convenience than an actual mechanic to be used. So yeah, pretty much just rotating your camera around so you can see, rolling your ball and absorbing different things. So check it out, Katamari. All right, so those are the verbs. Just again, another look. Don't want you to think that MDA is the only way to describe what a game is like. This is a very common one. And when you get into Project and Portfolio 5, one of the most important things to convey in a pitch concept video is what the player actually does. Again, not an exhaustive list. It could, but you don't have to list all the verbs. You get an idea, you understand what the player experience is just by these verbs. There's plenty of other ones that you could include, but these are the main ones. But as I was saying, in Project and Portfolio 5, you'll have to discuss what the player actually does in any creative concept pitch. You want to cover what the player actually does. So often students will give me ideas for games. They're like, oh, here's the backstory and here's the setting and it's so gritty and dark. It's okay, well, what does the player actually do? Well, I've got this awesome inventory system where you can move this stuff. Okay, well, what does the player actually do? Oh, and the enemies are going to be like this and they're going to attack you in pattern fire. But what does the player actually do? It's very hard to understand what the aesthetic will be, what the user experience will be, even knowing all of these mechanics. if you don't talk about what the player actually does or is expected to. Again, expected dynamics. Again, so that's it for the verbs. Thanks very much.